It's time for a tough conversation. Can Denver attempt an unprecedented campaign to solve homelessness and at the same time welcome migrants by the busful?
When I started, we had about 500 people in shelters. In 60 days, we're now close to 1,900.
A former sheriff and his team face felony indictments for faking their training records. One group of landlords in Denver are getting fined left and right. Before you cheer, it's worth asking whether they know the new rules. Coach Prime's most important guard isn't alignment, but let's just say he knows how to do the work.
Was protecting a quarterback back then, now I'm protecting the university.
We've got Colorado covered tonight on Next. Denver's new mayor is facing two crises simultaneously, and the needs presented by homelessness and the new surge of migrant arrivals, they really do overlap because people need a place to stay. So today, our Kelly Rinke asked Mayor Mike Johnston, can Denver handle both these issues at once?
A wait in line brings hope. After a difficult journey, more than 100 migrants on Thursday came to an intake center in Denver, including this 2-month-old baby, just looking for a place to sleep or a bus ticket to see family.
We will serve those folks that arrive. We'll help connect them to the services they need, the support they need, the places they're trying to get.
Since Mayor Mike Johnston took office in July, the number of migrants arriving in Denver has more than tripled.
We have had a significant influx of migrants, mostly due to Governor Abbott in Texas, who has been chartering buses full of migrants to arrive in the city and county of Denver.
The Denver Sheriff's Department gives rides to the intake center after buses from out of state drop off migrants in downtown. Mayor Johnston says many people didn't want to come to Denver and need a ticket elsewhere.
I do think that it disturbs people to put them on buses to places they're not wanting to go with resources that they don't necessarily have.
But there are migrants looking to stay. More than 1,900 are sheltered right now, and the mayor's office said capacity is becoming strained.
We are working on opening new facilities. We're working on partnering with community-based organizations. We're in talk with a number of community partners who have expressed interest.
As the city finds temporary shelters for migrants, the mayor has a goal to house 1,000 people who are living on the streets. His priority for long-term needs will be the unhoused, not migrants.
So we've really focused our efforts around long-term housing to be focused on our homeless individuals.
Two issues about people are happening at the same time. More migrants are coming to Denver to look for hope.
We know that is a significant increase to the amount of support we need to provide.
Families have a 30-day limit right now for staying at migrant shelters, and then they have to move out. The city says community providers are trying to connect them to more permanent housing, maybe even paying their first month's rent.
So when we're talking about where people are staying when they need a place to stay, migrants are largely going into congregate shelter, at least at first, before they go into individual housing. The mayor's trying to get folks off the streets and into individual housing. But at the end of the day, it's the same pot of money for a lot of the stuff.
Yes, he said right now the migrants have, for their 2024 budget proposal, they're looking at about $20 million or so. So we're going to see how fast that money goes.
Yep.
But because the shelter options are different, in his opinion, he's not too concerned about finding space. But they are asking community providers, hey, for migrants, when we do need more space, we need your help.
All right, Kelly Rinke, thank you. Former Adams County Sheriff Rick Reigenborn loved being the star of the show, live streaming himself, doing police chases and such. Well, now he's going to get his very own felony trial. Prosecutors say the ex-sheriff, who got bounced in a Democratic primary, forged police training records. Reigenborn, his former undersheriff, Tommy McClellan, and his former training supervisor, Mickey Bethel, are facing a stack of felonies. Basically, this indictment alleges that those three faked their own training records instead of, say, just doing the coursework. They missed out on refreshers on stuff like how to make arrests and how to drive a patrol car safety. That might have come in handy for Sheriff Reigenborn because he made headlines when he live streamed a police chase. He had a talk radio host in his car. They joined this chase. They kept chasing when other officers deemed it was too dangerous and called it off. After all the live streaming got attention, the sheriff then signed Adams County up to be on the TV show Cops. Both of the co-defendants left the department after being placed on leave for investigation. Denver's plan to make sure that landlords are not slumlords has licensed almost 10,000 multi-unit rentals, giving the city some oversight there. It's pretty fast work in the first 10 months of this program, getting to 10,000. But there could be 25,000 units total. Here's Marshall Zellinger.
Some rental units are obvious. The sign in the window kind of gives it away. Some just look like brick homes with air conditioning units in the windows. The landlord of this multi-family complex in North Denver has 999 problems.
He's been cited twice for $999. He's the king as far as getting the most $999 fines.
The owner of this property lives in San Francisco and has not responded to our calls about being one of 3 landlords with $999 fines. The city of Denver started a residential rental licensing program this year for landlords of multi-unit properties. And come January, any landlord, even renting one home, will have to have an inspection of their property and apply for a license, or risk citations ranging from $150 for the first fine to $999 for the third.
That's why the city doesn't just send out fines to people, landlords who don't know about it. That's why to start the process, they get a warning letter.
According to Eric Escudero of the city's licensing department, Denver has issued 1,600 warning letters to multifamily unit landlords, owners of duplexes, even this large apartment complex near 8th and Acoma, which was also issued a $150 fine and a second $500 fine. The city said the complex now has a pending license application. Large apartment complexes have lobbyists and associations that notify them about new laws like this. But what about the homeowner who one day decides to become a landlord and has no idea that Denver requires an inspection and license? The city has an outreach effort that may or may not be accurate.
And that includes sending out 40,000 postcards to people we've identified in the city who are or may be landlords.
How does the city know who is or may be a landlord without a real estate sign acting as a beacon?
We find listings on the internet. We have investigators who will look into the property and look in who is the ownership of that property. Those are public records, which we can find.
The purpose, according to the city, is not financial, just making sure rentals are not slummy.
It's not a revenue generator for the city. This is a safety thing.
For Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
The city says the estimated 25,000 landlords of single-family units are required to be licensed by January. Each license is good for 4 years. Congressman Ken Buck, liberal hero, did not see this one coming. But the Republican from northern Colorado is becoming a fixture on CNN, and he's getting quoted by Democrats left and right because of Buck's hesitance to pursue impeaching President Joe Biden without evidence. Democrat Jamie Raskin even had one of those blow-up quote boards with a Buck quote about the lack of evidence at today's impeachment inquiry hearing. Buck is getting blown up by Colorado conservatives as well, who feel like he was going squishy on a number of issues before he recently acknowledged that he's been talking to some media outlets, including CNN, about a post-Congress career. Maybe he's just going to walk away. Today, Buck said Republicans need to be focused on funding the government, not impeachment.
I disagreed with the idea of walking through an impeachment inquiry at this point. We have 3 committees. They're doing great work looking at Hunter Biden's activities, seeing if there's a nexus to Joe Biden's activities. I don't like calling it an impeachment inquiry. It is oversight. It's what we're supposed to be doing. But no, I think that our sole focus should be on this funding issue. We should make sure that we're funded through the next fiscal year.
Buck already has a likely primary challenger, State Representative Richard Holtorf, best known for telling a colleague whose son was murdered in the Aurora Theater shooting that he needed to let it go, and calling a colleague of color on the floor buckwheat. When the 2024 election rolls around, nearly half of Colorado's votes could be tallied by a new election official. There's a fresh study tracking the mass exodus of election officials following the 2020 election, and Colorado saw some of the most drastic drop-offs in the experience level of the people counting votes. This research comes from Issue One. They're a group working for campaign finance transparency. They say, according to their analysis of county records and news coverage, 161 counties across the western U.S. lost their chief election official since November 2020. In Colorado, 38% of counties have a new county clerk since then. That is far behind the turnover rates in states like Arizona, where 80% of counties have lost election officials. But where we top the charts is the loss of institutional knowledge. The election officials that have left their office in Colorado in the past few years have taken a combined 314 years of experience with them. The head of the Colorado County Clerks Association, Matt Crane, told us that some of the clerks who chose to leave office cited stress and intimidation from election deniers. Crane says his group is stepping up training for new clerks, knowing that any mistakes are just going to feed into conspiracy theories.
When you have somebody who's been there a long time and they're really election experts, they dot every I and cross every T. And so now it's training these new folks to do that, to know where the I's and the T's are, how to dot, how to cross them, and to make sure they don't make mistakes. But certainly when you have new people coming in, mistakes tend to happen. The grifters and bad guys take that and say, oh, this is where, the first example of where the voting system, there's a crack in running around in our voting system.
A new law requires election officials in our state to go through a certification program before they run their first election. That same law also bars anybody convicted of an election-related offense from becoming a county election official.
I would have loved to have played for him, but I love working with him.
There's a former CU player who is shoulder to shoulder with Coach Prime in a way that no one else is. We'll meet him tonight. Denver's increasingly defunct public toilets don't just stink. It could be the start of a wider public health issue. And 2020 was one of Colorado's most extreme wildfire years. CSU researchers say they think it's more likely to happen again. That's next. Denver just started putting porta potties and hand washing stations at homeless encampments. For years, health experts have been saying that the city's public sanitation infrastructure, like restrooms and running water, are a real public safety issue. Over the course of 3 years, the advocacy group House Keys Action Network and researchers from Regis University and DU took stock of the 271 public restrooms and water fountains around the city. Researchers found those amenities were not always accessible to people living on the streets. Many were not functional at all. During a survey in the summer of 2022, they found that about a third of plumbed park facilities weren't open or functioning during normal weekday hours. And when they were available, they were often dirty or broken or didn't have secure locks. The researchers also talked with nearly 200 unhoused people for the study, and nearly a third said that lack of sanitation led to physical or mental health issues. Bring this up because we were talking this week with two Coloradans who are moving into city-run hotel shelters, and both of them brought up to us the importance of running water.
Hey, I'm sleeping in a hotel room with my dog on a bed with a toilet, which is amazing.
Because I can take a shower and then go to a job interview or go to the doctor's, so that's just those little things that I don't know, I guess I really used to take for granted, and now I can finally I just feel human again. I don't feel human right now.
Denver Parks and Rec told us last month that they're working directly with homeless advocates as they install these porta potties at encampments. Those advocates from House Keys say that it's important that the facilities be ADA compliant, and then how quickly they're cleaned. They're suggesting it might need to happen twice a day. The wildfires that we saw in 2020 in this state were extreme, even by our historical standards. But CSU researchers say as the climate changes, those busy fire seasons could become less and less of an anomaly. There are a lot of factors that contributed to Colorado's most active wildfire season in history. A lot of overgrown fuels, but a new study from CSU attempted to just isolate the impact of climate change. Researchers ran two simulations of the 2020 fire season, one using the climate conditions from 1959 to 1978, and then the other based on the conditions over the last 20 years, so warmer temperatures, drier air. They found that an extreme fire season like 2020's is 4 to 10 times more likely in our current climate.
What this means is, the ways we've protected ourselves against fire for the last 100 years may not be adequate anymore. We really do need to change the way we are thinking about fire, and climate's a big piece of it.
Danielle, I think relying on what has happened in the past is just less and less of a useful gauge of what's going to happen in the future, because we know some things are obvious. Coloradans and more Coloradans are living in places, fire-prone places where we weren't living before. And the weather conditions, the climate conditions are different than what we've seen in the past.
More and more extreme, Kyle. We've seen just stretches of incredibly hot weather around here, incredibly dry weather. Talking about the drought conditions, surprisingly, well, courtesy of our soggy spring, we're looking drought-free for much of the metro area. But yes, the conditions certainly are changing, and we have to kind of think about the future for sure. And talking about high fire danger, we still have red flag warnings out there in place. Much of the western slope, the winds have kicked up quite a bit, and and they are under drought conditions out there. So high fire danger concerns to the west. Eventually, especially over the weekend, those concerns will return to the Front Range. The winds kicking up anywhere between about 20 to 30 miles per hour, even across the heart of the city. So certainly a windy afternoon, and we're going to have a few more windy days ahead of us. It was pretty hot. These temperatures are running 14 degrees above our average. 88 degrees out at DIA, 90s across the eastern plains, 97 in Lamar. Late September, 97 degrees, 70s and 80s up in the mountains. We did see a few more clouds out there this afternoon on the satellite composite. You can certainly see that southwesterly flow helping to usher in a few more. But with high pressure around and the storm track still staying to the north, we're not going to squeeze out any rain, no snow. Not yet anyway, but it is coming. I do have a few changes. Not necessarily tomorrow, though. It's still going to be pretty hot with highs in the mid to upper 80s, 90s off to the eastern plains. We're going to stay quite warm over the weekend and windy, so keep that in mind as far as high fire danger. But cooler weather and a better chance for some rain around here arrives next Wednesday.
Linemen don't get the attention, but it's an important role, kind of similar as a police officer.
Yeah, he didn't get a lot of attention as a CU lineman. Let's be honest. The team didn't get a lot of attention either at that point. But now the Buffs are in the spotlight, and so is that guy. A return to the field as Coach Prime's bodyguard. Boulder is the most fun ticket in college football these days, and we're about to meet a man who has a front row view for every game. But his eyes are on Coach Prime. Our Mark Salinger met the former lineman out there to protect the coach.
In a season where the spotlight is on one man, there's not much focus on the guy 2 steps behind Coach Prime. Yup, this guy, Officer Mark Musto.
I'm assigned to coach. Where he goes, I go.
The cameras are usually too busy trying to keep up with Deion Sanders to get a steady shot of the CUPD officer running by his side. But if you look closely, he's always there, running out with Lil Wayne at the coach's handshake after the game, everywhere. Just outside the spotlight.
I love that. I'm not really the limelight kind of guy. I'm not looking for the attention. I just want to help and participate, give back to the community and the team, and this is that. Like, that's what I'm doing. Hey, all right.
At 6'7", Musto is the type of guy you'd expect to be in charge of protecting the most popular man in sports. He's always been comfortable on the field, specifically Folsom Field.
Was protecting a quarterback back then, now I'm protecting the university.
If he wasn't guarding Deion,
I was an offensive lineman.
He'd be playing for him. Number 72 didn't get all the attention when he played a decade ago, but he's pretty close to it now.
I love it, actually. I was a lineman, and linemen don't get the attention, but it's an important role. Kind of similar as a police officer.
On the edge of the frame, Musto will always be on the field, just outside the spotlight.
And I still get to do that. In a different role now, which has been great.
For next, I'm Mark Salinger.
How cool is that for him? What an absolutely great role. We'll find out what kind of role feedback's going to be for me, because it's a surprise from Aaron next. On our reporting about homelessness issues and Denver's new approach to them, Christina says, please keep explaining how many steps and agencies it'll take to support individuals as they start their journeys to independent living or recovery programs. She said, I hope they'll allow you to follow them and report back periodically. That's certainly something that we are asking folks for, knowing too that they are at a real vulnerable and crucial point in their life. So what we want is for folks to succeed, not necessarily for us to be able to document what happens to them. But if they feel like they can succeed and share those updates with you, we would love to do that because we think that that hope is crucial. And Mayor says, you're highlighting homelessness has a huge impact. Consider follow-ups, please. Yes, absolutely, we will do that. Star says, I watch Next with my 14-year-old, pause it constantly to talk about the context of stories. I love that. Star says, I'm proud to say he's becoming a pro at sarcasm and current affairs. That's great. Hey, I'm going to be away for a bit. I didn't want to just ghost on you. You will be in good hands. And until then, see you next time.